Hi, and welcome to the Girl Jonah podcast. I've been a bit worried about doing this because I'm thinking, it's easy to interview people and just ask them questions and get an idea of what's going on in their lives and who they are and why they are the way they are. But when it comes to talking about self, you think, what's there to say? Is it the right thing to say? Is it too much? And also because I'm kind of talking about God and my relationship with Him. He's not the kind of boss that I want to mess around with. So I know that I was a bit anxious about doing this, but a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do. So I kind of wanted to talk about when I was in sixth form in St. Mary's Secondary School, and we had this guy who was called Ahithophel. He was a religious studies teacher. And he was a young guy. He just come from Legon, very enthusiastic, very energetic, a very good teacher. And I remember he used to talk about Legon, and he was a Commonwealth guy. So he used to talk about the Vandals and, all the stuff that they used to do. And I know that people were quite excited about, it sounded really exciting. But I remember thinking that I don't know if that's the space for me. I don't know if I would survive in a space like that. And I think I don't want to say it was weird, but I was then, 17? For me to know instinctively, intuitively, that wasn't going to be a good space for me. And kind of following it through to the extent that I ended up in the UK. And I remember when I came home in 92, I came for my brother's wedding. And I remember my dad telling me that he didn't want me to stay in the UK. And I remember thinking, well, all my brothers went abroad and you never told any of them to come back. So why are you asking me to come back? Even though, of course, I didn't have the nerve to say that to him, but I know that I thought that. It seemed like the rules were different for the boys and the rules were different for the girls. But I'm also reminded of like an evening where I was sitting on the tube from East London to South London where I lived, and I was I was weeping on the tube because I lost two people, not lost them like they were dead, but these were two people that were very important to me, and I had lost their friendship and I lost the relationship, and I was very upset. And I was also very ready to come home. And so I mean, now that I have the chance to reflect, I totally understand how strategic God is in how sometimes He creates these intuitive feelings that help us to make decisions. And all these decisions actually position us to be where He wants us to be and to end up the way He wants us to be. Because I always say that you can't plan better than God. You can't be a better strategist than God. He's a master strategist. But when you're young, sometimes you think that you are actually making these decisions by yourself. You think that you are in control. But with age and maturity, you understand that, I guess if Ahithophel hadn't come to teach us and hadn't talked about some of the stuff that they were doing on campus, if I hadn't been in a relationship that made me want to go to the UK, if I hadn't gone to the UK, if I hadn't had the experiences I had in the UK, if my dad hadn't told me to come back, if I hadn't lost those relationships, I wouldn't be here having this podcast. So I like to think that we have to learn to sometimes be guided, and to understand that some difficult situations that can come up in our lives are just like when you're going down the road and there's roadworks going on. It's not safe to go down that road. And so God puts these red barriers that are meant to redirect us. And that redirection and that rerouting takes us exactly where we're meant to be. And so that's one big lesson I think I've learned as a grown up, that redirection is not always a bad thing, and that redirection is actually sometimes the direction.